Okay, so we're going to go through how to do a BPO today and just step by step through every part of the process. I'm going to do one example, but in theory you would be doing this in bulk. So let's go ahead and go to Georgia MLS. We're going to log in with your given username and password. And we're just going to go to CRS Power Tools, and we're going to search the property and the tax record. So here we are at Henry County. I'm making sure the county's correct for the property I'm searching, and then I'm going to put in the address of the property that I'm searching. In this example, it's 384 Jasmine Drive. So I would just put Jasmine in. I wouldn't want to put Drive because it would overload the search and it probably would not give me the home that I'm searching for. So here's the tax record on it, and I just want to click on the owner name to get inside of the tax record. Okay, we're looking inside the tax record. At this point I would want to print it, so I'd say print, condensed black and white. This is going to allow you to be able to use this as a reference while you're doing your data entry and your research. So this is where you go to find the property. If you can't find it in the tax records, you could try looking at www.zillow.com and printing the information off of there. There's also a link on Zillow that gives you the source of the property information. You can click that link and it will give you the characteristics that you might need that you're missing out of the tax record. And I'll show you how to do that in a minute. So let's look at the tax record and let's point out the important things that we're looking for after we've printed it out. We're going to make sure that we have all this information handy before we start our research. So we have the property address under location. It's got the county, the subdivision. You go down to property summary. We see the square footage, which is important for our data entry and research. You see parcel ID, tax ID. This is what is known as the APN number, and that's needed as well for the data entry. Coming down here to sales history, we see the home just recently sold for $88,000 on January 24th, 2013. A part of the form does ask if the home's sold in the last 12 months. So being that this one has, we would want to take note of that when we did our data entry. Okay, coming down to tax assessment, we get our total tax appraisal, which is what we're going to base our value on. This is from the county's perspective, but it is a good roundabout number for us to begin picking a range for our property search. So after you've printed this, you want to go ahead and write down your range on your tax record. For this example, the total tax appraisal is $29,800. So I would write $10,000 below that and $40,000 above it. So I would write $19,800 to $69,800. That creates a range for me to search in MLS so that I know I'm picking comparable properties to this one. Also, we can see the land value here. That's needed in data entry, and the total taxes, which is also needed in data entry. We come on down to the property characteristics. We can see the square footage again. We see the year built, the bedrooms, baths. And we see it's a 1.5 story home. We see no basement. And we're just going to continue looking down here to acreage. This is an important part of our report, but we see this county doesn't mention what the acreage is. So we will know we'll have to continue on researching in other applications to find that. So now that we've got that and it's printed, we're going to move on to the next stage of getting the property ready to be researched. We're going to head to Zillow.com. Okay, and we're just going to type in the property address. And again, if you're dealing with a bulk list, then you'd want to do every single tax record before you move to this step because it saves a lot of time. So here we go. We're typing in, this is our second step, which is Zillow.com. And I'm just typing in the entire address. and I'm pulling that up. Okay, here we are. We see that the subject property is located up at the top. So you can either look right here where it has basic information, which should tell us what it's renting at, but we can see right now it's not saying that. So what we need to do is click on the link of the property. Okay, so we're clicking on the link, and now it gives us a lot more detail. So we see here, again, the home sold recently for 88 grand. So we want to make note of that, which is in our tax records already. But we want to write down the Zestimate right here of $89,994. Now, if a home recently sold, then we know for a fact that it is worth that value. So our original idea of putting in $19,800 to $69,800 based off the tax appraisal is not going to work for this situation because it's already been proved that the home is valued higher than our range. So we're going to make sure that when we price this home, it's going to be above $89,994. So at this point, we want to go ahead and create our range based on the Zestimate instead of the tax appraisal, because it's been proved that the home is worth this amount. So let's do 79,000 to 120,000. This will be our new range that we will search in Georgia MLS for. Okay, now we're going to head on and look at our property characteristics. So we're going down here, we're going to see our Zestimate again, and you see a range it's already given you here, which is okay to use as well if you'd like. It does kind of fall into what we've just listed as our range. We also see our rent estimate. We want to make sure we write that down on the tax record. This will be our rental amount. We're going to use this to research. We're also going to use it in the data entry section. This rent is $1037. So instead of writing $1037 down, I'm going to round up to the nearest 50. So I'm going to put $1050 is the rental rate. Okay, if it was like $1075, I'd probably say $1100 was the rental rate. Okay, going on, let me come back up here to description. If you have a home and you can't find it in the tax record of Georgia MLS, you can just search it in Zillow. And if you find Zillow information, you can click here to see data sources, and it will give you county record information. And that's where you can find the parcel ID number, the tax amount, and other stuff you'll need for data entry. Okay, coming on down, we see that the home has schools listed. So we just want to write down the high school, or in this case, the high school's not there. So we're just going to write down the elementary school assigned to it. This may be used, it may not. It depends on how many comps we come up with in our search. This is a great way to narrow down and get less properties when you're searching for the comparables you want to use. So to recap, I've come on to Zillow.com. I've found my property. I've found out that the Zestimate is 89 grand and that I want to price it based off the Zestimate as compared to what the tax records told me. So I'm going with the Zestimate, and I'm going to say a range of 79 to 120. I'm writing down my rent Zestimate. I'm rounding it up to the nearest 50, and I'm coming down here and I'm writing down the school district as well. So after I completed that process for every single address I had, I could now move on to the research part of this job. So to do the research, I go to reinsight.com, and I'm just going to pull it up here and begin searching. So for every research, we have to research BPO and a rental. We're coming up with a value the home will sell for, and we're also coming up with a value the home will rent for. and that's two separate researches, but you do them at the same time. The reason because of that is due to the fact that you've already got your parameters in here for the property, so it makes sense to go ahead and do it at the same time. So now I've clicked on my search button and I'm in the search section where I'll enter my parameters. I want to make sure my template says BPO search criteria on it, and I begin to come down here and put in parameters needed to find similar properties. So the first thing I always put in is a status date, and I just go 6 months back from today's date. It doesn't have to be 6 months, it could be less, but that gives you the idea. It can be no more than 6 months old. Okay, I always want to put in my zip code. I always want to put in a list price of what I wrote down on my tax records. This is the range that I'm searching for properties in. So for this example, we did 79 and we did 120. This is giving me values that between 79 and 120. Nothing below 79 or above 120 will pop up in this search now. As you're entering your criteria, you're going to see this criteria summary get smaller and smaller, and that's a good thing because it's narrowing down properties that are not similar to the subject. The last thing you want to make sure you put in every time is the year built. And you're going to look at your taxes, which is, my taxes say it was built in 1999, so you're going to look at that and you're going to say 10 below 1999 and 10 years above it. So I'm going to say 1989 to 2009. Okay, now I'm going to see how many I get in this search. Depending on how many I get, I have 77 is going to determine if I need to put in the school district that I looked up. I'm going to go ahead and try it just to see if I can get less. And the school is not popping up for me. And it's not there either. Okay, so my school's not working for this example. Oh yeah, here it is. So I'm typing in Unity Grove, and now it's giving me 31. And 31 is a great number to search. It'll give you enough sold and actives, but it's also not going to overload you with choices. So up here I'm seeing the location of the comparables. Red means sold, orange, green means active, yellow means active. And that really doesn't matter. I'm just letting you know that. But you can go ahead and put your mouse over to the right and select full grid. And then we're going to change our template. And this is very important you change your template. It's going to affect everything else you do from here on out. So we turn it to Appraisal Data 1. This is going to give us the template that we'll export after we find our comps. What we want to do is go ahead and sort this by status. So we have statuses sorted in order now. We have our solds, which is going to be S's. Our under contracts, which count as inactive, they're going to be U's. Our pending agreements, which count as actives. News, which count as actives. This means recently on the market. You see the market time is what determines if it's new or not. B, which stands for back on the market, is inactive, and while an A, which we only have one A in here, is truly inactive. Okay, so we're going to start our search by basically looking at the range we wrote down on our tax record, 79 to 120, and we are going to pick 3 actives and 3 solds based on that. And what I want to do, and I'm going to do the solds first, is I'm going to pick 1 low, 1 medium value, and 1 high based on that range. So if my range is 79 to 120, I do want to go here to the sold price column and try to find a low valued sold. And for this example, I'm just going to look here. Here's a 71. So I'm going to pick 71. I'm going to pick and it might disappear after you selected it. Don't worry about that. It's just moving it down to the bottom of the list. But I'm going to pick a middle value, maybe 89, and then I'm going to pick a high value. I'm going to do 120. Okay, and then I'm going to go up and do the same with my actives. I'm going to pick a low value, and the low one I'll just get 84. I'll do a 119 for my high value, and then I'll do a 106 for my medium value. So now I come down and hit show selected, and I see I've got 3 solds, 1, 2, 3, and I've got 3 actives. So at this point I'm ready to export this out. So I go down here to export, and I go change my saved views to the same template name that I'm searching on. So it'll be appraisal data 1, and I hit export. Okay, now I've got my solds in order. I've got my, well, it doesn't matter if it's in order basically. We're just going to go ahead and save this. We're going to hit save as CSV file. And we're going to send this to a folder on our desktop called Realty Pilot Exports. Okay, I'm just going to name this export by the street name that I'm researching. So I'm going to say Jasmine Comps, and I'm going to save it. Okay. So now I've got this, and now I want to go in and make sure that I save the pictures for these. And I'm just going to start from top to bottom, and I'm just going to number them active 1, active 2, active 3. So I'm naming it the street name, and I want to pull up my BPO picture folder on the desktop, and I'm just going to save it in here. So active 1, and then I'm going to do this for this all the way down. I'm going to say active 2 Jasmine. Just right click on the picture, hit save as, active 2 Jasmine. Active 3 Jasmine. Sold 1 Jasmine. Sold 2 Jasmine. Again, I'm just clicking the wrench here. I'm going to photo download, right clicking on the property, sold 2 Jasmine, and I'm saving it. And then last one. So now I've got them all completely saved. Now I'm done with my research for the BPO. So what I'm going to do now is go in and grab some rental comps. I'm looking for 2 rented and 2 active rental comps. So here's all I'm going to do. I'm going to change my property type to rental residential and take out single family detached. And then I'm going to change my status to include rental leased. So I'm going to select all that, and this is going to say, well, there's no comps that fit that. So what we need to do every single time is we need to take out the list price, because we're searching thousands instead of hundreds of thousands. So at this point, we want to just make sure there's nothing in that. Now that has pulled up 20 comps, and I think that's good for us to research through. So what we want to do is change our template to appraisal data rental. This is going to show us the rental values. We want to search, sort by status again. We see we have active comps, new comps, and rental leased. So we want to pick 2 rentals. We want to pick 2 actives. We're going to look down at our tax records and remind ourselves what Zillow said the home will rent for. In this example, Zillow said it will rent for $10.50. So I want to pick one rental that's above that number, and I want to pick one rental that's below it. So example, if this will rent for $10.50, I want to pick one for $11.50 because it's greater than $10.50, and I want to pick one for we'll do $10.25. And then I want to repeat that. Now I have my 2 active rentals. I want to repeat that for my rented properties as well. So I'm looking for one greater than $10.50. I'll grab this $11.50 again. And I'm looking for one less than $10.50. So I'll pick this $1,000. So let's look at our, we'll hit show all. We'll hit show selected to see what we have grabbed up. And we're just double checking, is this number in between what we've selected? So $10.25 and $11.50 and $1,000 and $11.50 will allow me to price my rental at $10.50. Okay, so I'm exporting this out as well. I'm going to hit Save Views. I'm going to make sure it matches with the correct template. So this is appraisal data rental, and I'm exporting this. I'm going to take this and save it as a CSV file. And I'm going to name it the same street name but put rental behind it. So I'm going to say Jasmine Rental. Okay. So now we have our rental properties. We don't need to save any photos for this because the form does not require it. So now that we've done that, we're going to repeat the process for every single address that you have until you've completely finished researching everything. Now, as I've told all of you as you've been trained, you want to group all these by cities, similar square footage, similar year built, similar value, because if you can do the least amount of researching possible, it's going to speed you up to get the job done. So anything that you can group together, you want to do that. You want to minimize your number of researches, and you can use the same comps for different properties. You just need to make sure you know what it's saved under for Excel. Okay, so now we're at the point where we're ready to do the data entry for the order. So we're going to go into Realty Pilot. We're going to go to BPOs, BPO list, and that's going to take us to our main page. We'll expand search, and we'll just type in the number of the address, 384. This is going to pull up every single form that we have to do to get this order submitted. Now you are, as data entry, responsible for all of the forms for that address. So for this example, there's 3 forms for this property address. This is an interior BPO, so that means you're going to have to do the BPO, you're going to have to do the rental addendum, and you're going to have to do an extra inspection based on what the photographer saw when they went out to the home. Okay, so we're heading into our BPO first. And what I suggest you do when you have a interior BPO is you go ahead and pull up another Realty Pilot. You can have as many Realty Pilots open as you like. So I'm going to pull this up, and I want to have 2 screens because at some point, and I'll do that in a second, but at some point I'm going to show you how you can do your inspections at the same time you're doing your BPO, and that's actually a way to save time as well. Well, let's look at the BPO form first, and then when we get ready for the inspection, I know I have another tab opened up to pull that up with. So we've pulled open our BPO and we're going to start our data entry. We need to make sure every time that we're putting in the county, and we're also going to put in our APN number. This is something that needs to be done every single time. It's going to be different every single time, but this is something that can't be skipped. Okay, we're going down to general market conditions. These stay the same, the first two. Current market conditions are stable, employment conditions are stable, but we're going to change the market price of this type of property, and we're going to change it to decreased 1% in the past 6 months. Now we're going ahead and putting in the estimated percentage of owners versus tenants, which is 75 to 25. And then we're going to put in, based on our research, how many comps we saw that were similar to the property. So here I'm putting 8. I'm going to put number of competing listings 3, and I'm going to put 0 boarded up homes. And this is kind of standard stuff that you're going to enter every time. So you need to kind of get used to entering the same things as you do this. So now we're going down to section 2, subject marketability. We're going to put in the range that we found as we were pulling tax records and looking at Zillow. So the range I came up with was 79 grand to 120. Okay, and we want to change our days to 120 days for marketing time. Now it says, has the property been on the market in the last 12 months? Yes, it has. We figured that out when we were researching it in the tax records. So we're going to just put in the last amount it sold for. So we're going to put in 88 grand here. Okay, heading on down, we're going to put our rent value in. This is kind of hidden and it's easy to miss, but it's very important you put it in, because if you forget this, it always gets kicked back to me and I have to correct it later. So put your rent value in and then move ahead to environmental issues, and you're going to hit no, no, and no. Okay, so you're done with the basic data entry, and you're going to come to the point where you're ready to enter in your comps that you've researched. I'm going to go ahead and copy my address, because when I do my next step, it's going to delete the address. So it's just a way to cut some time off if you go ahead and copy it now. I'm going to go to Fill from CSV File. I'm going to choose a file, and what I'm grabbing right now is a template that I've created that's going to fill in all the redundant data entry. So I'm going to go to GRC Basic Data. It should be saved on your desktop, and I'm going to match it up with the same template, GRC Basic Data Template. I'll hit Next Step, and I'm just going to fill in each one of these squares so that each address, even though it's not written here, you know it's there, each address has one dot in each square. So it's a grid, and you're making sure it's going all the way down diagonally, except for the column Don't Use. Okay, so and we hit enter, and you see it filled in a lot of our report, stuff that we would have to type over and over again. Now we don't have to. So we're going right back, and we're going to paste our address in, because it did delete it. And now we're going to hit Fill CSV File again. Now this time when we go searching, we're going to want to get our comps that we researched. So I'm going to Realty Pilot Exports, and I'm grabbing my Jasmine comps. Okay, now I'm going to come down and choose GRC Comps Import, and I'm going to hit Next Step. Now, I need to match up my sold comp 1, 2, and 3 based on what comps have sale dates by them. So I'm going to say Jordan Lane is sold comp 1. Plantation Lane is sold comp 2. Browns Country Lane is sold comp 3. I'm going to do the same for my listed comps. Annie Lane is a listed comp, and it needs to be list comp 1. Ryan Road is a list comp, and we'll put list comp 5. Now we'll use Waters Edge as our final list comp. So you should have checks all the way through. They may not be in order, and that's okay, but you just want to make sure you don't have a checkbox in the Don't Use column. Okay, so we're adding the values to the form. and it's filled in a lot of the entry that we're going to need to do. So what we need to do at this point is just double check what our information has filled in for us. So we're just going through and we're looking. One thing I want to make sure you guys look for is proximity to subject. Please make sure that there is something in the box for each one of these fields. It should be a red flag if you have a comp that has a distance over 10 miles. For example, one comp may say 1,690 miles away. We know that's incorrect, so we're going to fix it. If you find that, for example, with this one, let's say it was 10 or more miles away, I would just change it. Okay, I want to make sure everything's at least 10 miles from the subject property. Okay, so I'm making sure everything is filled in, nothing is blank. I come to sales or financing concessions. I see that there was $1,780 contributed to this home at the sale, so I'm taking that out because it has nothing to do with value. So you either want to zero in all of these squares, or you want to have a number in it, and then you'll need to deduct that number. The key thing is none of these squares, when you're done with the report, should be blank. Okay, so we are going here again to all the drop-down boxes. None of them will ever fill in. So we're going to fill them all in as equal. Now for some reason, my import did not take correctly, so I'm just going to correct that real quick. Okay. Okay. So I've got everything filled in correctly so far. I'm coming to lot size, and I'm taking that information and I'm putting it in the section of lot size. And of course, I did not research that, so I need to go back and figure that out. Okay, so we have come to the point where we forgot to get our lot size for the subject property. So we need to make sure we look that up. And what we can do is we can go to Zillow.com first and see if that did tell us what the lot size is. Okay. And as that looks up, I'll discuss other options of finding missing subject property information. You can go to www.fmls. You have a login for that. You can search in the tax records for that to try to find any missing information. This is better to do before you start researching, but if you forget, you can always stop and go back to do it like I'm doing now. So I'm typing my address back in. I'm pulling up the property. I'm just going to come down and see on See Data Sources if I can find out what the lot size is. And it's not here either. So this is kind of a good thing because now I'll show you FMLS and how to use that to get additional information for a subject property. So I'm doing FMLS.com. And this is another real estate search database. So I'm logging in. You have this login information. You want to log into this and go to Fusion. Okay, as it's loading, I'm going to wait for it to load. going to say public records. I'm going to type in my address up here that I'm searching for. It's taken a while to pull up. Okay, so I can type in under the address my property address. Again, I don't want to overload it. I'll just put the street number and the street name, and it's going to give me another form of a tax report on this property. So I'm just going to come down here and I'm just going to look under characteristics and see if it has a lot size, and it does, and the lot size is 0.19 acres. So I'll write that on my tax record and make sure to put that in my data entry form. And it has other characteristics as well that should match up with your Georgia MLS tax records. And so you just use this database if you're missing information. Some counties are really bad about filling in lot size or something of that nature. So just it's good that this happened in our example so that you can see other options on finding that information. So now that I have my subject lot size, I'm going to fill that in. And then I'm just going to scroll through and make sure all of my other properties have lot sizes in here. It cannot be a 0 in these slots, and it also can't be blank. So we're putting something in, and you're just going to estimate. If it is blank, you're going to estimate something close to what the subject is. Okay, so we're coming on down, and we're seeing our quality of construction needs to be filled in. This is Q3 every time, all the way across. This is just basically a Fannie Mae version of rating a property condition. If you really wanted to get more information on that, you can click on the magnifying glass, and it will tell you what defines each type of property. So we're doing Q3 all the way across, and then we're going to do our year built for the subject property. Okay, this automatically calculates the age. And so again, we're just going through making sure our subjects have some information in there. Again, with the year built, you just want to make sure that it's within 10 years of what the subject property is. If there's something that slipped in there and it's not within 10 years, you want to go ahead and change it and bump it up or down to make it within 10 years so that it goes through QC. And we're going to condition again. We're doing C3 all the way across. And then we're doing total bedrooms and baths. Now you see, once I put in my beds and baths, it's going to change in total the total bedrooms. So that is a section of the form that calculates itself. We're going to come across now and make adjustments for beds and baths. In this example, I've got 2.1 baths, and that actually counts as 3 baths. So anytime you have a half bath, you round up and you count it as a bathroom itself. So 2.1 baths is actually 3. So I'm going to make my adjustments based on that. So I have 1 extra bath. So I want to give a bath to the subject. I'll give it $1,500. All the way across. I want to give it another bath to make it similar to the subject property. In this example, I have 1 less bath but 1 more bedroom. So I'll say in my mind, I'll say $2,000. I'll say minus $2,000 plus $1,500. So that's going to leave me with a negative $500 as a deduction to make this home similar to the subject property. Okay, now I'm doing gross living area, and that is 1719. And I'm just going to scroll across and make sure that all of my gross living area square footages are within 300 square foot of my subject property. If you don't change this, if you get something crazy in there like 3,600 square foot and you're doing a property that's only got 1,700, then it will be kicked back to me and I'll have to go in and correct it after the report's been submitted. So if you could just make sure that you're getting them close, and again, if it's something in there that's higher than 300 square foot, you need to change it based on that. So this is 1719. If I did 2,000, and 10 square feet, that would fall within 300 square foot of the subject property. There is no basement, so we're just going to go across here and hit zeros all the way across. And then everything else is filled in with the exception of the property tax. So we're going to put in the subject property tax from our tax record information. We can hit recalculate at the bottom, and we're going to write down our range of property value. We're going to do our lowest to our highest. So I'm going to say 72,780 on my tax record to 119,500. So I've written that range on my tax record. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move to the next part of this. And here I know I'm going to have repairs, probably, because this is an interior home. But I'm just going to go ahead now and just go straight into my competitive listings, and I'll come back to the repairs. So I'm just going, again, grazing with my eyes and making sure there's nothing that's left blank. So I'm putting zeros in for sales or financing, coming on down and saying equal for all of this. Again, this did not fill in correctly. So I'm going to go across here. Now that shouldn't be an issue for you. It should work for you. I'm going to go back and see why that happened. But I'm filling in lot size because a few of them were blank. Coming over here, putting Q3 all the way across, making sure my age is in line with 10 years of the subject. I'm going to put C3 all the way across. I'm going to make adjustments. I'm giving this an extra bath to make it similar. I'm going to give this an extra bath. And I'll give this one an extra bath. Okay, and then I'm just, again, making sure this is in 300 square foot of the subject property. If it's not, I'm going to change it. Okay, I'm going to put zeros in for my basement, and I'm just going to make sure everything else is plugged in. I can recalculate that. And I'm writing, again, my range down. My lowest, which is 85.5, to 125. Okay, so I have my ranges written down on my paper. I'm going to go ahead and take the highest low and the lowest high. My range becomes 85.5 to 119.5. Okay? Now, I'm going to take another form that I've given you that you should have saved on your desktop called BPO Comments. Oh, and I'm going to pull up and copy and paste from the unbolded section. From there are no environmental or PMI issues of this property. I'm going to copy it all the way down till I see the word rental. I don't want to copy the word rental. I'm just going to paste all of this information into the comments section. Okay, the only thing left to do with this report before submitting it is to notate the repairs and then price the home. So what we're going to do right now is save and move to the next page, and we're going to look at the repair template for this home. You can see the pictures have already been uploaded. So while we're here getting our repair template, which should be down here, we can also upload our comparable photos that we downloaded. I'm just going to select them all the ones I saved for Jasmine, and I'm going to go ahead and upload them in here. Now, this is important. You need to put them in the order that you downloaded them. So you want to start at the bottom, and you want to slide it. Sold 1, sold 2, sold 3, list 1, list 2, list 3. If you put them in the backwards pattern of how you saved them, then they're going to fall into the correct sections. Okay, so we're coming down here, we're getting our repair template. I'm working with the drivers to make sure that they're able to take as close photos as they can of the repair template. The problem with this particular example is we can't really see what repairs the photographer says is needed. So we're going to just kind of zoom in and pull it up a little more and try to see here on what she thinks is needed. And again, I can't really see anything at this point. Let me try something else. Yeah, that's just not even readable. So I'm going to look, all of the data entry training packets come with a copy of the template that the drivers have. So I'm going to try to look and see what I think she's checked based on what she put down here. Looks like based on my template, she says it needs to have the pressure wash exterior for $400. Yard cut looks like for $100. Looks like she's saying needs interior paint. Looks like she's saying needs new looks like replace linoleum. Okay, and looks like she says missing washer and dryer. And replace a door. Okay. Unfortunately, you might have to do that a few times until we can get the drivers on the same page of knowing they need to really zoom into their templates so that we can read them. After we have our repairs, we can go ahead and go back to price this. So what I'm going to say do right now is to minimize your screen. And remember I told you to pull up a second screen of Realty Pilot. That's what I'll do right now. And I'm just going to search again for the property that I'm working on. I'm going to go ahead and do the inspection and get that out of the way. So pulling up 384 Jasmine, and I'm looking for the inspection form. I'm going to pull that up. And now I'm just going to type in all of the repairs that the template tells me. So I'm going to say pressure wash, home. I'm going to say the amount that the template suggests that will be valued at. I'm going to say yard cut. I'm going to say paint interior, $3,000. Missing washer dryer, $800. Replace door, which was $500. So I'm going to total all these repairs out, which you can do in your BPO form. So now I'm kind of working two Realty Pilot forms at the same time. You don't have to do this, but it's a great way to kind of kill two birds with one stone. Now that I have this written down, I need to make sure that before I submit this BPO form, that I take this rental template and I trash it, because the company doesn't need to know that our repairs have been standardized. So we took that out of the form, and our photo page is good to go. The only thing we're missing with our BPO is pricing it. So let's hit Edit Second Step to go back to the page where we'll put in our repairs. And we're just copying from here. We're going to say, same thing here. We're going to say, listing all the repairs that I got off the template. total repairs is $4,800. So now I know that I can price it, and I'll just go ahead for this example and total it over here in the inspection form as well. Okay, so I'm moving down here, and I'm going to go ahead and price the home and submit this form. I get my land value straight from the tax records, $18,800, and then based on my bracket, I'm going to fill in the correct information here for pricing. So remember, my bracket was $85,500 to $119,500. So I'm just going to go ahead and put in my very lowest part of the bracket here, $85,500, and then I'm going to add $2 or $3 grand to that to list it at. I always want my list price to be $2 or $3 grand higher than the market value. The idea behind that is we're going to list it higher than we think it will sell. So remember, list price sections should always be higher than market values. If your market value is higher, you've done it incorrectly. Okay, so I've got my low end, 30-day as is. What will the home sell for in 30 days at a distressed value? Now I'm putting in my actual values of as is and repaired. This is what this home will sell for within 120 days. So we want to do our high end of the bracket. Our high end of the bracket was $119,000. Okay, and I'm going to take $2 or $3 grand from that, and I'm going to say $117,000. Okay, at this point I'm going to go back up and say I had $4,800 of repairs. So I want to make sure that I'm doing this correctly. I'll say $119,000 minus $4,800, and that's $114,200. So that would be my as-is list price. I'm taking the repaired value and subtracting it from my repaired list price to get my as-is list price. And I repeat the same thing over here. I say $117,000 minus $4,800, and that's $112,200. Okay. Now this is priced correctly. You see that the list price is higher than the market value. It's the same amount of $2,000 difference between the as-is market value and list price, the repaired market value and list price. So that's ready to go. We just come over and we're going to submit the form. We scroll all the way down, complete it, and it disappears from our queue. Let's finish up with doing the inspection now. We have our repairs. We're going to copy it, and we're going to paste it all the way down as we go. So you want to go ahead and copy it, and we're just going to go through these very quickly based on the driver's assessment of the property. No legal notices. Yes, it conforms to the neighborhood. No risk of vandalizing. No, the property wasn't winterized. No, water's not on. No. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Yes. No, 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 no. And just make your best estimate of what you think based on that template. There's really no right or wrong answer for some of these. It's just a lot of them kind of are standard, like the electric. You're pretty much going to say no, yes, yes, no, and no for pretty much every single one you're doing here, unless there was something in the repair template that said something was wrong with the electric. Same thing for plumbing. You're going to basically say the same thing. Yes, the faucets are in working order. No signs of leak. Yes, the toilet flushes. So you're going to get used to checking them in a specific pattern. This is yes all the way down. Now, I gave you a printed out example of an interior inspection, and you can use that as you go. This home did have a fridge and it did have a stove, but it didn't have a washer and dryer. So I'm going to go ahead and put repair cost here of $800. I'm going to go ahead and paste my comments again. I'm going to keep on going and go to the next page. The bottom line is every single thing should have a check on it, and every single section should have comments in it. And if you miss one single check while you're doing this, it gets kicked back to me and I have to go in and correct it. So remember on the template, the driver said it did need paint. So I'm going to hit everything good down here except for anything that says walls. And then I'm going to say fair on that. So I'm just going down here and hitting everything good. Now, for example, if the driver said it needed new carpet, I would probably put fair for both. Everywhere it said floors. Okay, so it's just based on what the driver says that you'll select the condition of the property. So I'm going to say good, fair, good, 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 because the only thing this thing needs is paint. Good, fair, good, 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 all the way down. Missed an entire section, so I'll say good, fair, good, 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 good. Paste. Good, fair, good, 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 good. Okay, whoops. Okay, I'm going to just return back because I missed a section here. Just paste that in there. Alright, so I'm done with my inspection and I'm getting ready to submit it, but I want to make sure that I'm taking the repair template out of this as well. So I'm taking it and I'm trashing it and then I'm submitting the report. Okay, at this point I have done my BPO, I've done my inspection, and now I'm moving on to my rental. This is the very last step for this property. Okay, so I'm typing in my address, I see my inspection forms gone, I see my BPO forms gone, and all I have left is the rental. The rental is the quickest form, it requires no photos. So I'm just going to start with the data entry. I'm putting in the county, the APN number based off the tax records, and I'm going through here. It's a stable rental market, so nothing changes there. I put the same amount of tenant versus owner that I did in the BPO report. So I'm giving an estimate of how many rentals are in the neighborhood, and then I'm going to go ahead and go to my rentals section of my Word document and copy out the sentence, no reason a renter would sway from a single family rental. Now I'm going to come in here and fill in my file. I am looking for my export folder in my rental CSV file I saved, bringing it down and putting in GRC rental and selecting it. I'm just going diagonally across, filling it in. This filled in a lot of the information. The home is not currently rented, so I don't put anything here for the subject, but I go ahead and fill in what it says above for the comps. So I'm just basically filling in what total monthly rent is based on what the current monthly rent was. So those will always look the same. Okay, I'm going to change my year built, make sure it matches up okay, put in my lot size. Make sure that there's no zeros here. I'm just putting in numbers if there's any zeros. Okay, I'm going to change my square footage. Make sure it matches up and it's within 300 foot of the subject. Oops. And I'm going to go ahead and put my bed and bath in there. Okay, sorry about that. So I'm going to change utility included to no all the way across. I'm going to just type in none for all the other blanks. Okay, if I recalculate, I get my rental values down here. And I go ahead to the next page, and I'm going to search that. And then I'm just filling in any missing information. I do need to mention no adjustments are needed on a rental addendum. Okay, and then I'm just going to price it based on what Zillow said. Now I'm going to grab my comments under rental and plug this in where it explains that no adjustments are warranted, and I'm done with the rental. Now I do notice in this example when it imported it, it actually imported the comps in a pattern that's not going to work for our report. It's got all the low end comps for comparable 1 and 2, and it's got the high end comps for our active comparables. So what I can do here is go back and I'm re-importing the rental, and I just want to make sure that I'm going to select it in a different pattern now, because I need that range or else it's done incorrectly. So now here I have 1050 to 1150. And I'm just going through. Now that gives me my range that I can price my home at 1050, and it gives me comps that file in between both of those. So I have done this correctly, and I'm just making sure that since I re-imported the data that everything filled in correctly, and I'm done. I'm going to double check I'm completely done with the order by entering the address, and nothing pops up for 384 Jasmine Drive. So I'm completely finished with that, and the order's done. That concludes the training for this, and I hope this will help you guys. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to call me or text me or email me. Okay, thank you.